Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the KDLT Sports Video Blog. Mark just made a funny off camera, so
I thought it was.
you make a lot of funnies. I'll give you that one. He is Mark Ovenden, our sports director, and also of Calling All Sports. I'm the weekend guy, Zach Borg. I'm still wearing my sweater here because I'm still cold after shooting the snow bowls up at USF and SDSU, but it was a lot of fun for both teams. Sunday, not so fun for the University of Sioux Falls. Most teams go 10-1. They're going to make the playoffs. Not in Division II and not in the Central region. Sioux Falls, they get snubbed. They get the short end of it. 6 teams get in and out of the region. They're the 7th team. There's really no other way to say it. Somebody was going to, like you said last week, somebody was going to come out of this feeling like they got hosed, and it's USF.
Exactly. I mean, had it been the other way around, the team that finished in 7th place would have felt the same way. It just happened to be USF. I think the solution to this whole thing is just to expand the playoffs. If you do, regardless of how many teams you have in the playoffs, somebody's always going to feel like they got the short end of the stick. That's always the way it's going to be, no matter what the sport is. But if you increase it to 32, if you have a strong region like we have here this year, a team that's 10-1 is not going to get left out. A team that's 9-2 might get left out. But this year, look at all the records. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at them all, but it's not like a team with a bad record finished ahead of USF in the region. They did not. I mean, all the teams ahead of them either had 1 loss or no losses. So I think that's the solution, is to expand it. Another possibility would be for the NSIC schools to not have to play all NSIC opponents. If they could play 1 or possibly even 2 non-conference games and schedule teams in some of these conferences that they're up against and prove that they can beat them, then they're going to get in.
USF does go to the Mineral Water Bowl. Northern State also gets hosed in this because they would have gone to that bowl game had USF gone to the playoffs, and they finish a terrific season for them, 8-3, their most wins since '99. The one team that did get in that I took some issue with is Harding, who was the 6th team, very last. Right. They go 9-1. They had the option to play a non-conference game. For whatever reason, they don't schedule that game, and it actually works in their favor because it can't hurt them in strength of scheduling. I totally agree with you, and I know Jed's raised this point too, that there does need to be a non-conference game in the NSIC just to play these other teams, especially in years like this where the league is considered weak overall. Unfortunately, St. Cloud, who'd been good for the last couple of years, they beat them, but St. Cloud had a bad year. Winona had a down year. And it's just kind of the reality with the Division II playoffs, unlike the FCS where they kind of select whoever. They go by this regional setup. Some regions are going to be weak in some years, and others like this one are overly strong.
Yeah, and you can't really criticize Harding for not playing that non-conference game. I mean, they were smart to not play it. As it turns out, they were smart. It's a bitter pill to swallow for USF to have to go play in the Mineral Water Bowl, but I guarantee you it's Central Oklahoma, right? Yeah. I feel sorry for them because I think they're going to take out their frustrations on their opponent in that game. I'd be shocked if they didn't, because look what happened last year with SMSU when they went and played
Pitt State, who had gotten snubbed.
Right, and they gave up 90 points. I'm not saying USF's going to get 90, but I am telling you they're going to play a great game. I feel bad for the 15 seniors who aren't getting a chance to play in the playoffs and see how good they really are against some of the other Division II schools. They've already proven in this conference they're in the elite. They're up at the top because they finished 10-1. Duluth and Mankato, who ironically didn't play each other, both finished undefeated, and USF was ahead of Mankato going to the 4th quarter. They did not play Duluth. That hurt them. But that's just luck of the draw.
And you talk about there's going to be a lot of what-ifs. What if Augie beats Duluth in the opener, hits an extra point? Maybe that knocks Duluth out because I think USF was the stronger. They certainly played in the stronger division in the South. What if Augie beats Mankato? I mean, there's just going to be
both those games.
They really could have. So we're going to have a lot of what-ifs, and like you said, I think the Cougars, even Jed's mentioned this, Mineral Water Bowl is also important because they're playing an MIAA school. It's one of those schools they're compared against. you want to go out there and put up an impressive performance just to show them that you made the mistake.
Well, and again, hopefully that carries over to next year, so that when there's a USF is still new in the NSIC. That probably hurt them a little bit in this, because there isn't that reputation that they have, like Mankato's got, like Duluth has got, like Winona, like St. Cloud. USF is the new kid on the block. So if they go and kick some butt against Central Oklahoma, that's going to help them in the future, because they're just reestablishing themselves in Division II. They were an NAIA powerhouse. There were the same 4 schools that were almost always at least in the Elite 8 of the NAIA playoffs every single year, and usually the same 4 in the semifinals. I mean, how many times did USF play Carroll College? A lot. I was out there to televise one of the games, and I think the same thing it takes a little bit of time for that to happen when you're in a brand new, you're in Division II of the NCAA now. You're pretty much having to develop that reputation all over again.
The Mineral Water Bowl, by the way, is December 6th down in Excelsior Springs against Central Oklahoma. Still have some college football left locally other than that game. It's State U Week. South Dakota State hosting the University of South Dakota. SDSU, boy, a couple weeks ago their playoff chances looked pretty grim, but they've gotten a lot of help, namely Youngstown State, who is, for the second straight year, collapsing as they had a playoff berth in hand a few weeks ago, and they're on the verge of losing out. To set the stage, SDSU beat Western Illinois 59-24 in the snow in Brookings. Austin Sumner throws 6 touchdowns. USD, it's been a struggle all year. They lost to co-conference leader Illinois State 45-26. It was actually closer than that score indicated, but nonetheless, they're winless in the Valley and on the verge of their second winless season in the Valley in 3 years. What are we expecting for State U round 3, obviously, since they resumed the rivalry?
Well, I mean, pride's at stake for USD, but there is so much more at stake for SDSU because of the fact that they're playing for a playoff spot. I can't imagine that they would not come out and I mean, they're going to play. I got to believe they are going to be focused. They did the exact same thing last year, where the last 4 games of the regular season were all those must-win situations, and it was like every game was a playoff game. Same thing this year, and they need to take care of business on Saturday against USD, and I think they will up in Brookings, because if they win, because of what's happened in the last 2 weeks, I think they'll get in.
The only way I could see them not getting in is if Youngstown has to go to Fargo, and that's going to be
if they beat the Bison, then they'll get in.
They would both be 8-4, and obviously Youngstown has that tiebreaker of winning at Coughlin Alumni a few weeks ago. I think that was actually their last win of the season. But that's obviously a very tall task, and the Bison are also playing for the top seed and the conference title, so it's not like NDSU doesn't have something to play for. Especially when we talk about the Division II playoffs, this is what you like about the FCS. They do at least put the best teams in. It isn't all criteria-based or region-based. Valley could get 4 or 5 teams in, although last year they got kind of screwed and only got the 2, with SDSU being the only bid. If this league doesn't get 4 to 5 teams in, that would be kind of a shock, especially if you have 4 to 5 teams that you could have 3 8-4 teams.
Yeah, and I think out of all the Valley teams right now, the one I wouldn't want to have to play is Northern Iowa.
Yeah.
And they should get in just based on the fact that they've come on strong at the end. They won to beat North Dakota State 23-3. I wasn't entirely shocked that they beat them, but that they beat them like that, yeah. But they've been coming on for 2 years. Remember last year they lost 5 in a row, and they were all either overtime or last-second losses or whatever. And this year it kind of was looking like the same thing was going to happen.
Especially after they lost that game to State. They really, State actually had to make a great comeback. I think they turned it over 4 times and still won.
Yeah, so they're a dangerous team right now, and I think South Dakota State's a dangerous team because Austin Sumner is back, and that's not to say that they weren't good before, because he did a great job. But, this is the last hurrah for Austin. There's a little more at stake for him, I think. Winnike's given him a tremendous weapon I was going to say second weapon. He's become the number one guy. And to have Schneider there, to have both of those guys to go along with Zenner, makes them a team that would be tough to play defense against. So
it's kind of like they have the team they envisioned themselves having, I think, at the start of the year. Because you had, and again, Zach Lujan did fine, and he kept them in a position to where they could get to the playoffs. But you had Sumner going down in week 1, and they've had a lot of injuries. They're kind of finally starting to get healthy, and we're starting to see that, especially this last game with Austin, who kind of shook off the rust at NDSU and Indiana State. They're in good position. I mean, it's similar to last year when they got rolling and won a game at Northern Arizona.
So, yeah, I think you're going to see a very good South Dakota State team this year. I feel bad for Joe Glenn because you love the guy. Joe's got so much enthusiasm, and he's a great football mind. So
he seemed like genuinely perplexed by some of the way they've played at times. He says, well, I've heard him say a couple times, we've had great practices, and we just haven't put it out on the field. And and it's a tough schedule, and they dealt with the same situation with Earl going out.
They had the hardest schedule, period. But they had this same problem 2 years ago, not last year so much, but 2 years ago, where they lost a bunch of games at the end. And football is all about believing you can do it. And when you keep losing close games, I think that starts to drift into your mind that at the end of a game is, how are we not going to do it? Instead of how are we going to do it? And that's not even something you think about. It's just sort of a subconscious thing. And
that's the part that made me disappointed this year, because I thought maybe they were starting to get over that last year when they won some of those games. And you either get over that hump or, like you said, it keeps snowballing.
Yeah, and it's just unfortunately gone the wrong direction for them because they've got some talent. They really do have some good football players at USD, and I'm surprised they haven't won more games this year.